Number 10. This happened approximately 2 years ago in Arizona. I was 27 and my boyfriend at the time was 28. It was around 3 AM in the morning and I got woken up by the front door jiggling. At first I thought it might have been our neighbours. The walls were really thin. If they slammed the door, it sounded like it was my door. So I thought nothing of it. It happens again, and I tried to mention it to my significant other, and he pretty much said it was nothing, go back to sleep. So I'm just lying in bed while the door keeps jiggling. The third time, my cat even ran to the door and growled. So I woke him up again, and he finally gets up. He goes to the door, and there's a man standing there, hooded up. He can't make out a face because it's so dark and my light didn't work. Eventually, my significant other yelled something, and to this day, I still hear him. He opened the door and actually pushed me outside the door to check it out. Thankfully, the guy already took off. I only think he took off because he heard a man in there. I know he had to have been watching me when I was coming and going, because normally, around that time, I would be getting ready for work, being by myself. Number 9. I went to a conservative, all-girls Catholic school, so I was pretty innocent about a lot of things. On the morning of my 16th birthday, my mum drove me to school and dropped me off across the street from the gate. A car was parked near the gate. Just as I crossed the street, the driver rolled down the passenger side window, called out to me, and asked for the name of our high school principal. I didn't really get the question, since it seemed so random so early in the morning, so I asked him to repeat himself. That's when I noticed rapid movement below the steering wheel. The monster was jerking himself off while talking to me. I was so horrified I ran into the gate, past the security guards, and straight to my homeroom teacher's arms in tears. I was so shocked, it never occurred to me to tell the guards, who were only a few feet away. Everyone felt awful for me, as they knew it was my birthday. I later told the security team, who kept a lookout, but never found the guy. It's been 12 years, and the memory still makes my blood boil. Number 8. So this is going to be pretty short, but I just remembered this disturbing, well, more just gross honestly, call that me and my co-worker got while we were both on shift. I work at a small, locally owned Chinese restaurant, and I have been for going on 4 years. I'm turning 18 at the end of the month. My boss tends to hire younger girls, no younger than 14 and a half, because the restaurant is a really lovely place for your first job. The reason this is important to know is because half of our waitresses are all underaged. We get free meals every time we work, but because we all argue about what to get, the person who works the late shift that night gets to choose. My friend Jade was working the late shift that night, so she got to choose what we all got. She decided, and was going to call our delivery driver, Tim, to see if he wanted anything. So she dials a number, and a guy picks up. All I hear from her end is, Tim? 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 Okay, I'm sorry, wrong number. We all sort of laughed about it, because she could hardly get one word out to the guy before they hung up. Not even 5 minutes later, someone calls, so she picks up and answers with the normal Chinese restaurant greeting that we have. I'm watching her, because I notice her face change into confusion and she says, "No, I'm sorry, I had the wrong number." "No sir, I had the wrong number, I didn't mean to call. This is a Chinese restaurant." She said this one super confused and a little frustrated. Then her eyes get all wide and she slams the phone down and just stares at me. Her face got super red and she started fanning herself. So I laughed and asked her what happened. The same guy had called and was claiming to be Tim and started asking her random questions. He asked her how old she was, and that's when she responded with, "This is a Chinese restaurant." And as if the creep couldn't get any more annoying, he asks, "Well, is this restaurant horny?" And she hung up. We laughed it off afterwards and just went back to work. I know it's not necessarily creepy like all the other stories on here, but I was just grossed out with this guy. She could have been 13 for all he knew. We get some interesting calls at work sometimes. Number 7. Hey guys, I've been scrolling through Let's Not Meet and reading so many encounters that people have had when they were younger, and it jogged something in my memory. This all happened before 2006, so when I was younger than 8 years old. My guess would be 5 or 6. The reason I'm guessing the age is that I didn't actually register what was happening, so I must have been pretty young. My grandma has always been incredibly religious, ditto her friends. When I was little, she was my carer as my parents were abroad working and couldn't take me with them at the time. It was literally just like a day like any other. We were walking to church, there was a graveyard next to it, and it wasn't a church that we normally attended because it was in a much more secluded area. In order for you to understand the next bit, I just need to explain the settings here, as far as I can remember it. Now, we were walking towards this church, but it was a little further away from where the incident occurred. We were walking across a deserted road, and the surroundings looked a lot like the countryside. There were no houses near us, but there were people milling about. A lot of them were homeless people or gypsies. Forgive me if this is me generalising. However, homeless people and gypsies over in my home country are everywhere, and most are involved in a lot of crime. Well, they're always on the news anyway. I was holding my grandma's hand, but eventually I just sort of wandered off. She had seen a friend also going to church and was talking to them, so while this was happening, I just slipped my hand from hers and walked slower, taking in my surroundings. She looked back at me and then carried on walking. So she knew I was close. She checked on me a few times, and when she was satisfied I was safe, she just sort of relaxed. I guess she didn't think anything bad was going to happen when we were so close to a church. Just bear in mind that my grandma was in her early to mid 70s at this stage, so she couldn't stand a chance against this dude. So, 5-year-old me is just strolling along, staring at dandelions and kicking stones, when all of a sudden, somebody grabs my hand. I just completely forgot that my grandma was in front of me, so I let this person pull me away. We were still walking forwards, and I wasn't paying much attention, until this person suddenly pulled me to the side and started walking in another direction. Now, I'm not calling this an alarm bell, because I'm pretty sure I was just ignorant as shit as a kid. But something was off, because as far as I was concerned, we were meant to go to church. So I look up in the direction of the church, and I see my grandma. She was starting to get smaller and smaller as she walked, and this is where I was really confused. I finally looked at the hand that gripped mine. Definitely a male hand. And then I looked up at the man. He was so tall. Of course, he would be to me. And he was staring at me as if he realised I clocked onto what was happening. So he pulled me quite roughly trying to steer me away. I think, even as a 5-year-old, I must have been too shocked to be scared, so I just sort of yanked my hand back and fucking flew out of his reach as quickly as I could, running back towards my grandma and willing her not to turn around and see that I was so far behind. I think he was running after me for a bit, until we got closer and closer to my grandma, and then he stopped and just disappeared. I can only vaguely recall hearing footsteps, but I was so young that I'm not entirely certain whether that was just my imagination running wild, or if he really did try to catch up to me. I finally caught up with her and made sure I was walking in front for the rest of the journey. I never told anybody about what happened. In my 5-year-old brain, I must have decided that it wasn't worth recounting. It's actually sort of creeping me out remembering it now. I've always sort of thought back to it over the years, but never actually sat here trying to remember everything that happened in the moment. Creepy child abductor? Let's never, ever, ever meet again. Number 6. This is my cousin's story, and it's going to be pretty short. She said this happened to her when she was 8. When my cousin and her family were watching TV in the living room, a guy knocked on the door, and when her mum went to open it, it was a guy with a hoodie. They said that they were trying a new cleaning product. My cousin's mum instantly got a red flag, because it was 9:30 at night, and that is a really odd hour to have people knocking on your door in the suburbs, and she saw no car or van to hold cleaning products. She kindly rejected and told my cousin to call the cops. When the cops came, my cousin's mum told them what he looked like, and said that about 30 minutes had passed since he came. The police eventually came back, but they had no success in finding that guy later that night. My cousin says that night, she heard grunts outside her window, and when she checked outside, the same guy was standing right there pleasuring himself. They called the cops, but still, he was never found. My cousin now sleeps with the curtains closed, and this all comes from what my cousins told me. Number 5. Today I went to the movies to see Deadpool. Alongside me was my stepmother, who has recently been training to be a cop. In the beginning, everything was going normally, and everything was good. I loved the movie, and had seen this once before. Toward the end of the movie though, I noticed an older man who had walked to the top of the theatre where me and my stepmother were sitting, and he sat there. He didn't watch the movie, didn't sit down, didn't do anything except stare at people. I blew it off thinking he was looking for someone and couldn't find them. He then went down toward the entrance of the room and did the same thing, looked up at everyone and stared for another 7 to 10 minutes before leaving. I thought it was odd, but continued watching the movie. About 2 minutes later, I see the same old man walk in, only this time he walked very slowly across the theatre, not facing the screen or anything, but once again looking at all of the people. My stepmother looked at me and whispered, "Grab your things and head to the lobby." I began to get a little freaked out and did what she said. I went to the bathroom to pee, and when I came out there were 4 workers standing outside the theatre, and she was explaining how his behaviour was like that of someone about to shoot up a room. He was scanning the room and everyone in it. After a while, the workers took control of the situation and watched the man for a bit, just to make sure everything was well. 2 workers went in, and after about 5 minutes they came out saying, "Yeah dude, he's still standing there and staring at everyone. Soon after, we left the theatre just to be safe. Once getting home, she had called one of her friends that worked at the police station and talked to them about it. They said he was a middle-aged man and he had a loaded weapon on him the whole time he was there, and never once sat down nor stopped looking at everybody. Number 4. Living across from a busy convenience store can be both miserable and entertaining. Last winter, I was heading out of the store making my way back home, when I had to pass a parked but running tan Dodge van. "You need a ride?" said the driver. I said no, and made the stupid mistake of saying, "I live just right here." It didn't seem like a big deal at the time, because I had my husband waiting for my return just on the porch, and thought the guy was generally concerned because it was freezing weather out. While my husband and I carried on with our night, I started to realise the guy was still over there in his van, that was parked perfectly facing towards us where we sat on our porch. My husband made it clear to him that we knew we were being watched, and that we was watching him, so the van eventually drove off. But he started to drive by, 5 more minutes later breaking his neck to look at me. Every time we thought we saw the last of him, there he was again. So my husband went out onto the sidewalk, giving the driver the "what the fuck" arm stretch, and he finally fucked off, I think. We called it a night and went back inside, peeking out of the blinds every now and again. The next day, I noticed the same coloured van parked a few blocks away in view of our house, but I'm not sure if it was him, and I damn well wasn't walking over to find out. I didn't see the guy again for what seemed like forever, but I'm a very paranoid person, so I was constantly looking around and staring down every tan Dodge van that drove by the house. A few weeks go by, and I am walking the same route, and realise I am walking past a parked tan Dodge van that is running. I slowly make my way walking past the rolled down window, when there he is, smiling freakishly at me, and in the midst of the most eerie deja vu, he asks me, "You need a ride?" I'm livid, and say to him harshly, "No!" and confused that he already asked me that, why he is doing this. He started chuckling a bit as I picked up the pace and tried to scoot away quickly. As I'm jogging across the street, I feel his presence on me, and he is pulling onto the street at me. Nearly hitting me, he laughs while asking, "You need a ride?" I'm bursting through the door nearly in tears at this point. My husband is concerned, and I tell him what freaky shit just happened. We agreed to call the police and report this man harassing me. They told me that he didn't actually do anything that was considered harassment, and said all I could do was maybe pull him over and tell him to knock it off. I haven't seen this man since, and I hope to never see him again. Number 3. So just a bit of background information. My name is Crawford and I'm 19. My girlfriend Lauren and I decided to get a place together in the city. We moved in a couple of weeks after we was searching, and there was a security guard there named Phil. Phil was cool at first. He would greet everyone as they walked in. But things took a bit of a turn for the worst and got a bit sketchy. Me and Lauren have an apartment on the very top that looks over the city, and you have a pool and a hot tub at the top of the building. Me and Lauren always go up there about 1 or 2 AM just to chill and talk and have a little makeout sessions. Phil comes out and says, "What are you two doing up here so late?" Lauren can pick up vibes of people easily, and she felt really uneasy around him. I told him, "We just wanted to see the city at night." And Phil says something that still haunts me to this day. He said, "Why don't you guys have sex in front of me?" Lauren says the most funniest thing ever. She says, "You know there's a website called Pornhub. You can go watch people have sex there. Now, will you please just leave us alone?" Phil got mad at Lauren and went back into the building. A couple of days later, me and Lauren celebrated our 1 year, and we was heading back to the apartment to have a little bit of fun. Right in the middle of it all, Lauren screams bloody hell as she saw Phil in the bathroom doorway jerking off to what we was doing. I called the front desk and they called the police. The police came shortly after we explained the entire situation, and thank God he lost his job. We still live in the same apartment, but that was probably the creepiest thing I have ever had happen to me in my whole goddamn life. Since me and Lauren don't watch the news, we really didn't care on what happened to him, cause the way he always looked at her and the way he was standing in our bathroom doorway watching us was just fucking disgusting and really uncomfortable. I'm happy we never have to be around that shit anymore. Number 2. Now this one's not really a very long story, but still, it's creepy. Me and my grandma were on the train on the way home when this 20-something homeless dude with bloodshot eyes walked up to us. I was about 7 at the time, and I was pretty sheltered, other than a few Smosh videos. Anyway, this guy had a duffel bag over his hip area, and a potted plant in his other hand. Like I said, I was only 7, so I thought he was just moving his hand because the bag was going back and forth. He asked for money, and my grandma declined. He then looked at me, and the bag started moving faster and faster, and he walked away. A couple of years later, aka now, I thought back and realised that he was jerking off under the bag and had sped up by looking at a 7-year-old boy. So, creepy train jerker, let's not meet. Number 1. This happened to me when I was 12. I am now 42 years old, but I remember this like it happened yesterday. I will give myself the name Joe and my other friend the name Frank. On this day, me and my friend were bored. Back in those days, there wasn't much to do. We were looking for adventure, but we did not know adventure was looking for us. In the morning, we got a call from someone looking for a couch. My mum was looking to sell her couch to help her for our summer trip. This man talked in a very deep voice and was acting like he was skeptical all the time. We never heard of this guy. However, we lived in a big city. We thought that we could get some money from this guy, and we were wrong. It is now in the afternoon. We have been playing some board games when we heard a knock. The guy who was knocking was no other than the guy who was looking for the couch. My mum gradually opened it and invited the guy in. This is when stuff starts to go wrong. I heard talking in the kitchen about how expensive the couch is, how good the condition is, and etc. She was talking calm and she was being polite. However, he was acting skeptical and anxious. My mum told him that the couch is no longer available, and he decided to get violent. My mum is the type of person who is nice and sweet, but will also strike on you. My dad was at work, but lucky for us he was coming home. The guy finally decided to leave. However, he was not going to let this go. My dad finally arrives home, and my mum tells him what happens. He of course gets irritated, and says to me and Frank to go into my bedroom. My bedroom was upstairs and had a single window. The room was a medium-sized bedroom, and the door did not lock. My dad went into his room and grabbed his shotgun. He was going to shoot that guy if it meant to protect us. He lets Frank stay for the night and tells us he will be right back. It is now pitch black at this moment now. My dad hears a noise and it's from my bedroom. He goes into the room and opens the door. The window is open, and he saw that the closet was closed and locked. Now, I must mention that I do not close my closet, and I can definitely not lock it. My dad now takes the gun and fires a bullet into the closet. He calls the police immediately and starts yelling for the guy to get out. It is now 10 o'clock at night. The police are now at my house. They get their guns out and, of course, my dad has his shotgun out. The police open the closet and find a man in it with a large knife. The knife was about 5.5 inches long and could easily kill someone. The police tell him to get onto the ground and drop the knife. It is now 9 o'clock in the morning. The police tell us that the guy planned to kill us. If it wasn't for my dad and his shotgun, we would have all been dead. I was scared for my life, and I started to cry like my mother did. We instantly removed the ad for the couch, and are now armed. The bastard that wanted to buy the couch, let's not meet again. Well, anyway guys, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed, then please leave a like, share and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm sorry that this video has taken a lot longer to come out than usual. I've just been really busy lately. But anyway, if you have any stories of your own which you would like to have shared, then please make sure to contact me. Link will be in the description below, and you may be featured in a future video. Well, anyway, I hope to see you soon, and I'll speak to you later.